What's up, everybody? Banksy.
Doing good.
I am.
We're picking up kind of where we left off on Monday.
Yeah.
We didn't get through all the subjects. We talked about the Geiger thing, and then we talked about Biden and Bernie.
Ugh.
And their hopeful demise.
I hope
and
this is
we forgot to talk about Michigan and Maine.
Oh, we just ran out of time. We try to keep these things at about an hour and a half for those of you guys that are joining us, maybe for the first time.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, and so we are going to get into a little bit on this proposed Michigan bill that would hold private establishments accountable for
and the government.
Yeah, and the government accountable for any type of violence that happens on their property if they are in the business of telling their patrons and citizens that they can't own guns. And then there's this really neat story out of Maine
that you brought to my attention.
Yeah, where people have, I think it's 93,000 people are pushing back against people that want to inject you and your kids forcefully by the government.
See, the forcefully part is
so grotesque.
Because when my pharmacist just says, "Hey, do you want to get the flu shot?" and I say no, transaction is perfectly fine. I don't hate her for pushing the flu shot, even though I don't think it is necessary.
Perfect
and
transaction.
Probably does more harm than good.
How many? So the flu kills, I don't know, 100,000 people plus a year?
We shouldn't guess on that kind of stuff.
I like to just throw numbers out. Like
how many?
How far is Shane off by, give or take? You guys in the audience, put your bets down now. The flu kills a lot of people. I mean, it's a huge killer out there. And
80,000 in the United States.
So 100,000, I wasn't far off.
I'm quite impressed.
Margin of error. That's
margin of error. 20,000 lives here or there.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. I mean, right? That's almost a full stadium in some cases full of people.
I actually didn't think that the flu killed this many people. I thought you were way off.
No, it's astronomical. I mean, I say astronomical. It's a huge number. I mean, but
flu shots for all.
80,000
sponsored by
people.
the Rebellion.
I wonder if you could do a quick Google search since you're so good at this kind of stuff of how many people flu kills a year over time. I would like to see if there's a trend with immunization, quote unquote, against the flu type thing. So if you're looking at, let's say, how many people die from flu in the early 1900s to now here in 2019, like what does that look like? Is there any graph out there? But my hypothesis is that it's far greater now than it was back in the day, just based on the fact that we have more human beings living in closer proximity. You have people traveling around the world at a much faster and more voluminous type case. So, I mean, if it comes to your attention, fine. But this
so I've got I'm on the CDC's website here.
Yeah,
I know. Who can we trust? But
yeah, I'm sure the CDC, because the CDC recommends you get a flu shot. Their government.
They say how effective is the flu vaccine? CDC conducts studies each year to determine how well the influenza flu vaccine protects against flu illnesses. While vaccine effectiveness can vary, recent studies show that the flu vaccine reduces the risk of flu illnesses by between 40 and 60% among the overall population during seasons when the flu is circulating. I was looking for let me search for the word death.
You know who doesn't get the flu shot?
The Amish.
This guy.
CDC uses mathematical modeling to estimate the burden of illnesses associated with influenza in terms of cases, hospitalization, and death. These figures are then used, blah, blah, blah. Boy, they are belaboring getting to the freaking point.
Well, I'll tell you right now, the first red flag for me is effectiveness. What is the flu vaccine actually designed to do? Because I'll tell you right now,
it's designed to reduce the chance of getting the flu by apparently between 40 and 60%. It's not designed for. It's designed for 100%, but that's what it achieves.
Yeah, the thing is, they classify that two different ways, right? You said that they are looking to see how well preventativeness, how well it prevents people from getting the flu first and foremost, right? So, and then they also go on to say its effectiveness, which doesn't seem to be the same thing to me in terms of language. And I'm kind of a stickler when it comes to language. Is when we look at this and it doesn't say what is this thing supposed to achieve in the first place. Man, I don't know. with the U.S. government, the Tuskegee Airmen, what they did to spread STDs in Central and South America, the U.S. government has a long, dirty track record of quote-unquote immunizing people and passing on diseases and killing them.
So if you want their numbers, they don't actually talk about deaths, which is interesting. And this is only this one page, but it is their like things you got to know page. They do say that it is 64. It has reduced between 2010 and 2012, so in 2 years, by 74% the risk of children with flu-related pediatric symptoms from intensive care units. It has reduced adults from being hospitalized for flu-related symptoms by 40% over the same time span, and between 2012 and 2015 has reduced the risk of being admitted to an intensive care unit by everybody with the flu by 82%. Those seem like very high numbers.
Yeah.
Statistics, you know what I think about statistics. Yeah. Same thing that Mark Twain says about statistics. There's three things in life: lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Well, I mean, the fact that you call out CDC, which is a government organization in the realm of health at the federal level, which should not exist in the first place. You know, I would, if you guys don't know about the Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis, quote unquote, in the Negro male, do you know about the story? Oh, it's terrible. I mean, I'll just kind of go through it. It was an infamous and unethical clinical study conducted between 1932 and 1972 by U.S. Public Health Service. I think they're probably the CDC now, right? Like maybe they're not. Maybe they're a repeat type of organization. We'll just say
government health.
Yeah.
We're allowed to put them in one basket.
The purpose of the study was to observe the natural history of untreated syphilis. The African-American men in the study were only told they were receiving free health care from the United States government. Come get your free flu vaccines. Free flu vaccines, everybody. Come on. Step right up. We'll vaccinate you.
You know what would be really cool is if somebody with a lot of attention could get somebody to tell a story. And it starts out with, this is like free healthcare. The story of free healthcare, and make it sound positive. And slowly taper it out into, and that's how you get syphilis.
Yeah. I mean,
like, get a crowd.
It's a great meme just waiting to be made. I mean, it really is.
That might be one where we'd get like some SJW hate on there. I'd love that.
Write that down. I'll tell you right now. Banks, I posted this story earlier in the week, man. And we'll get into the story now. 93,000 people in Maine signed petition to veto new vaccine bill taking away parental rights. This is from vaccineimpact.com. The story reads, on Friday, September 18th, 2019, Mariners for Health and Parental Rights held a press... Mainers? Mariners? Yeah.
That's what, what's his name said.
Maniacs.
I prefer Maniac. Let's call him Maniac.
Mariners. Man. Oh, yeah. All right. Anyway, for Health and Parental Rights held a press conference at the capital of Maine to announce they had obtained 93,000 signatures to support their grassroots effort, Veto 798 Maine. According to the website, 798 is a bill that was pushed through the legislature despite overwhelming opposition from the citizens of Maine and then quietly signed into law by Governor Mills in May of 2019. LD 798 threatens all of our rights, including informed consent of medical decision-making, parental rights, equal access to education, religious freedom. LD 798 eliminates religious and philosophical exemptions to vaccination, prohibiting parents, staff, and health workers from exercising their rights to decline one or more vaccines required by schools and employers. If Maine citizens do not comply with the new law, they face expulsion from all public, private, why can I not say this word? It's parochial, thank you, and online schools, and will be terminated from employment. To get the people's vote.
Terminated from employment.
terminated from employment with the state. Maybe
I'm hoping that's what that means.
Yeah, to get the people's veto on the ballot for March 2020, they were required to obtain 64,000 signatures from Maine residents within 90 days of September 18th. With 800 plus volunteers, they obtained over 93,000 signatures, nearly 7% of the population of Maine.
That's insane.
The people of Maine will now apparently have the opportunity to vote and veto this law next March, and you can watch the press conference below. So
that is nice, man.
That's huge.
So imagine. So they did that in the span of less than a month with 800 volunteers.
800 volunteers. That's a lot of volunteers, man.
So to do it within 90 days, which is 3 months, you'd need only a third of that. So that's like 266. Is that it? Yeah. 268 volunteers. So you can, like in Maine, you can do a lot with only like 300 people. You can veto every law, apparently.
Yeah. Sounds like you guys need to get busy on a lot of other stuff. You guys got a good model going there. You know what I mean?
I kind of like it.
I like what you got there. It'd be terrible if somebody stole that from you. But I mean, seriously, think about it. I mean,
this one is so simple though. I wonder what the breakdown of those 7%, those 93,000 people, 7% of the population is. I wonder if it's all people who are like vaccines are evil, because on this website you've got some people who are like every vaccine produces harm, which is actually true because everything has a cost effectiveness to it. But whatever. But I wonder if it's also people who are just like, yeah, I actually think vaccines are cool, but mandating anything is like bad.
Yeah. I got a lot of flack when I posted this, man. You know what's funny is I didn't get flack from the left. I got flack from some people on the right.
On our Facebook or on your personal
on our Facebook page. And I think one of the first comments up there, if you find it real quick.
I'm trying to.
I like sometimes when I get comments that are a tad absurd and ridiculous and unthoughtful, I will do a little Facebook stalking to see, who these people are. This one in particular individual.
Sometimes you'll troll the hell out of them, which makes me laugh a lot.
I try not to be a troll, but this person, I don't know, mentally handicapped or what. I think there's something going on here to begin with, and I saw MAGA all over their page, and they were saying that denying a child, and the thing is I'll give this guy a little bit of credit. He's into the whole right to life thing, and and trust me, you'll find a no bigger supporter of a child's right, no matter from the time they're conceived, through natural death. Like, you're not going to find a bigger proponent for that than myself. But here at the same time, this guy is sitting here saying that if you don't vaccinate your children with the government mandated vaccinations, that you are basically an accomplice and you're a child abuser and you should not have your kids. And for somebody on the right side of things, who gets some things extremely right, and then to get this so incredibly wrong, it's shocking to me to just see the divorce in mentality and understanding that. Listen,
I mean, people are just different. If we were to go from that logic, like you and I disagree on a few things, you'd be like, man, Banks gets so many things right, and yet he's wrong on whatever.
Chris Wallace's.
I acknowledge that wrong.
I'm kidding.
On that, so I think people just have different ways of seeing things. But I don't actually see an angry comment here. So maybe they erased it.
Maybe they got enough pushback from our amazing crowd out here that
mostly good things. One that I thought was really good from a top fan, and I've noticed that people are really proud of their top fans.
I love it.
The one who is the most proud and maybe the happiest is his name. Come on, West Virginia. He's
Pat McGeehan.
Pat. I'm sorry, Pat, if you're listening to this. I don't know how I forgot your name.
You forgot Pat McGeehan.
I'm getting old. But Pat was on there. He's like, top fan. I was like, oh, look at that. I'm proud of being his top fan.
Oh,
in general.
I said, trust me, man. It's definitely reciprocal. I am a huge fan of Pat McGeehan.
But from top fan Ellis Red, he said, I'm angry. There are 6 angry emojis in reaction to this post.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, guys.
Well, we don't know if the angry emojis are sometimes they can.
Sure,
they might be
intent is
good intent.
Yeah, I actually got into somebody last night when we were talking about mandatory minimums, and it was kind of like an excuse for the whole thing with Amber Geiger out there. And I misunderstood, and I apologize. I said, hey, I missed your intent. I thought you were making an excuse. So intent's important, but...
So actually, I can prove, I don't know 5 of the angry emojis, but I do know one. It's Matt Gertler's mother, and she certainly hates mandatory vaccines.
Yeah. So
we're all good.
So to kind of, I want to unpack this a little, Banksy. As this reads, LD 798 eliminates religious and philosophical exemptions to vaccination. So
I think that's a good thing.
It eliminates those things.
I know. I think it's a good thing.
You think that you... Explain to me, because I think we're miscommunicating.
No, I'm doing it kind of on purpose, but I think that we trap ourselves in a system that's framed by government.
Sure.
And so in one way that protects us, there are ways to say, hey, I'm a Christian, or I believe in this or that. Usually we are forced to frame ourselves under some kind of religious exemption if we want to kind of protect our personal freedom, right? Mm-hmm. It's if we're talking about marriage or talking about vaccines or talking about schools and so forth, that is the way that the government has framed, hey, you have these certain rights if you're religious in some way. And if your religion says you can't do something, you might be able to plea and like beg us to not infringe that part of your life. And I don't think that helps. I think that divides society in, look at all those weird religious people who have thoughts that are not ours, and we're on this other side, we're the scientific people over here. No, I think that everybody is allowed, is not the right word, but is due their right to not be forced to do anything, whether you're a Christian and you don't think it's right, or whether you're an atheist and don't think it's right. And while I know that this currently protects a lot of people, the religious exemption, I don't think it is a long-term good solution to have people think that, if you're religious, you're allowed to have a few protections. No, everybody has a protection of not being mandated to inject things in their bodies or their children's bodies. Doesn't matter what you are.
So this gets to
the bill in all is not good, but I'm saying long term that is how people should view society. It's not a religious thing. It's if you don't want things to be injected into your body, that is your sovereign right as a piece of human flesh.
So let's boil this down. Let's get down to the gritty.
That's the gritty
underlining principle.
People are not allowed to put things in your body. It's whatever they are.
It's your conscience.
Exactly.
So conscience is a big deal. I mean, it's a huge deal. The framers knew it. I actually quoted John Jay earlier. John Jay was the first Chief Justice. I don't know that a lot of people know that. He was also one of the 3 contributing authors to the Federalist Papers. His quote is, "Security under our Constitution is given to the rights of conscience and private judgment. They are by nature subject to no control but that of God, and in that free situation, they are now left." Let's talk about this, because this is the first Chief Justice who wrote a lot of what we have in terms of the meeting of the minds, legal term here, meeting of the minds for the Constitution, for federalism, for the Constitution. He is saying here, as a Federalist, and I'm not, trust me, I think they were all very brilliant people. I tend to side with the anti-Federalists. So for me to sit here and say a Federalist, a big government guy, a centralizing voice in this whole thing, is telling everybody that the conscience, your conscience and your private judgment are yours. They are left in the situation that is free, and that the only person that can be subject here to what you're doing is you through your own God. Your ability to choose what is best in your life, as long as you are not hurting anybody else, is your conscience. And government has no say over it whatsoever. I don't care if it's religious in practical application. I don't care what it is. If it's just a feeling, if you're agnostic, if you're atheist, I don't care what it is. It's your conscience, And so whatever you decide to do without hurting anybody else is not in the purview of any government.
It's funny how we got away. So we've got these highly enlightened people who studied the ancient philosophers and so forth, went back 5,000 years. And we had this enlightenment in a time where religion was very important, but where you have people who categorically talk about inherent rights. They do say bestowed upon God, but there are multiple examples. The John Jay one is great, talking about conscience and talking about the individual. And then we have this premise and this system that got a lot of power because, in my opinion, because of the rightness of their principles, right? If you're exposing the truth and you win based on the truth,
it's hard to beat the truth.
Not perfect truth, but you're going to amass power, and then the power is amassed, and then lesser minds decide that it's going to be all about religion, and that's the only virtue there is, and then later on we see the consequences of not telling the truth, of telling only a half truth that is true, right? If your religion says that you shouldn't put something into your body or get blood transfusions or perform abortions or marry somebody of the other sex, whatever it is, you shouldn't be forced to do that, even if it's bad ideas, so long as it's not hurting anybody. Good idea, but if you don't tell the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, et cetera, then there's going to be horrible consequences, and the horrible consequences are today that it's dividing a people, and to a lot of people who think less, and unfortunately, it's going to make them think that there is a difference, that, if your religion says that you're not supposed to do that, then that is a defense. Maybe.
It's your...
But if you don't have a religion, then you don't have that defense, and then people tend to default to things. So if people are like, well, I'm not religious, I'll default to those people who unknowingly have taken the state as their religion, because that's the default they go into. We're either listening to the morals established by XYZ religion, and there are only a few because we can't be open-minded, or we go to this other side, which the morals are set by government. Apparently, we're dealing with a bunch of entities that dictate what morality is, and anybody who's outside of the system kind of gets screwed.
I think we do ourselves a great disservice when we talk about the government as something different than a religion. I really do. The state, government, religion, they are all the same thing. Most religions now can't force you or compel you or coerce you to do things.
They can coerce you.
They can try. Not as effectively as
they do it pretty well.
They use guilt, right? Like they use guilt. You're still in that religion,
guilt and tradition.
But you're still there under your own, like your own free volition. You don't have to go to church. You don't have to be involved in a religion. I can't say that about the state. Now the state, I believe, like I said, I think we do our
unless it's Scientology, they will kidnap you and keep you in prison. No freaking joke, people.
Yeah. Now, are there worse religions than others? Yes, there are. The state being one of those. The state is a religion, and people worship it. People, there are doctrinal, documents, that we cite on here that we think would be a better type of lifestyle. We would take it a step further and say, let's get rid of all of it.
Well, that's my whole point about there's the truth, the Constitution. Following the Constitution would be drastically better for everybody.
Yeah.
But the whole truth is it is not the end-all, be-all.
Yeah.
And so not saying the whole truth, saying a part truth can be more detrimental than not saying anything at all sometimes.
It's funny.
Because if you just say white people are awesome and that's all you say, somebody's going to think you might be racist. If you just say white people are awesome, black people are awesome, everybody's awesome, then that's the whole truth, and that's much better.
I had this conversation with my brother this week, and I wish he was closer so we could have him on the show. I'm not a religious person, and as I age and think and just do, I now don't care about religion at all. I don't care. I think it is one of those things where people do it because it feels good and it's traditional and it gives them a warm fuzzy because the the reality of
people do it for lots of reasons.
And that's what I'm saying.
I think pinpointing it like that
it's infinite, right? But I think, and maybe I'm speaking from my own experience, right? Like, and let's just say that whatever I'm saying is my opinion. Okay, so I don't subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to any form of judgment by other people, because in terms of reality, the idea that the human experience and what we are in this cosmic universe, man, it's not comprehensible. It is not something that, through time and space and dimensionality and everything else and physics, it's not something science in our tiny little brains can understand. We just cannot. And to be, to feel guilty, to be worried, to do any of that kind of stuff because of, some humans' creation around the ideas of what they want, whether it's, just to help them explain to their little tribe or to control people at a much larger level. One is a little more innocent than the other, but the control side, I don't care if it's religion and I don't care if it's the state. They're the same damn thing to me. And I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. Like the idea that anybody agrees 100% with their religion, I think is absolutely ridiculous. They're founding documents.
Well, it depends how you define their religion. A lot of people would define their religion as their perfect little changes, okay, this is my religion, and a little addendum here, a little change there. So I think some people might.
But that's what I'm saying is, like, do you have a religious book? Do you agree with every word in it? If you don't, then you don't agree with your own religion 100%. And that's and the thing is there, how many different versions of just Christianity are there? There's a ton. Is there different versions of Islam? Yeah, of course there are. Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, all this stuff. There are multiple versions, and there's a thing that is internal, right? There's an internal chord. There are things that make you feel really good, and there are things that make you feel terrible on this planet, right? And some religions encapsulate a lot of that as truth. And I'm not going to sit there and deny that a lot of those good things are encapsulated by a religion. But again, in some parts of that religion, there are things, we don't really pay attention to the Old Testament anymore. We don't really practice this kind of thing. Like, you don't agree with everything in the founding documents of your own religion per se. And so what I'm getting at is, there is a specific conscience to every individual out there, and it's different in terms of what our experience in this world is. And anytime anybody tells you that you have to do something against your own conscience, they're a farce. They are trying to manipulate you for some damn reason or another, and that's not the way this country was set up. I've got another quote here by George Washington, and like I said, even the Constitution is flawed. The Bill of Rights is flawed. The government should not exist in the way it exists, because it is just another another way for people to manipulate and control you. Quote from George Washington: "If I could have entertained the slightest apprehension that the Constitution framed in the convention where I had the honor to preside might possibly endanger the religious rights of any God, please, I should probably have read this. Help me out with this word.
I wish I had it in front of me.
I can't do it. Anyway, it's a religious society.
Can you spell it?
ECCLESIASTICAL. A religious society. Certainly, I should. Ecclesiastical society. Thank you very much. Certainly, I should have never placed my signature on it. And if I could now conceive that the general government might ever be so administered as to render the liberty of conscience insecure, I beg you will be persuaded that no one would be more zealous than myself to establish effectual barriers against the horrors of spiritual tyranny and every species of religious persecution. I have often expressed my sentiments that every man conducting himself as a good citizen and being accountable to God alone for his religious opinions ought to be protected in worshiping the deity according to the dictates of his own conscience.
See, that's interesting because, again, I think this is a great example of higher intelligence, but also higher principles telling the whole truth. This is not a comfortable this is not it is not easier to tell the long version of things, to be like, the thing that I'm pushing, the Constitution and fighting for, and freedom and all that kind of stuff, it's imperfect. This is
the chairman.
Often I don't mean to put myself on a pedestal. It's often the position I feel that I'm put in sometimes in politics, where everybody's like, woohoo, happy, especially when you're like around Republicans who have maybe lowered their standards. Good people, but they've lowered their standards a little bit. And or I'm at a meeting, the board of the 11th District Republican Committee or something like that, where they're all like happy and like, oh, for example, let's give $500 to this candidate. I'm like, hey guys, he actually or she actually supported this bad thing, so we can't support them. And they're like, why you gotta be a Debbie Downer, Banks? Yeah. I was like, well, because it's true.
Yeah, it's just truth. It's principle.
And they're like, oh, it's so annoying. We're gonna be here longer. I'm like, I thought the job was like doing good, and for me, not telling the whole truth and not applying the whole truth based on the principles that we believe in, which I'm hoping are the truth, would be like net negative. They're like, you're just, and they're usually like one of three things. One, they like agree with me, and I think accepting the truth makes people happy. Two, they just like demonize me or like say I don't know, either a rebel rouser or an a-hole or something like that. Or three, just get really annoyed. But I appreciate the full truth. I know it can be a little bit like, I think that's why people call libertarians like a little Aspergery or something. Mm-hmm. It's like, because we're annoying, because they're like, whoa, there's tons of untruth here. We're not allowed to have fun. We got to point out all the problems. But I think there is a lot of value, and I think George Washington puts it in a wonderful way. I think he does a little disservice focusing too much on religion, but he still focuses on the man in the end there, which I think is very important.
Yeah,
I mean, I know you're not going to disagree there.
I don't disagree. I think it's, like I said, I think it's extremely dangerous when we hold up any of these institutions as reverent or as a commanding voice that can force people or can make it compulsory for things like vaccines. Now, to get back into this, these 93,000 signatures that Maine has collected, I can't help but keep looking back at what this does. If Maine citizens do not comply with the new law, they face expulsion from all public, private, parochial, and online schools, and will be
okay. So this is just like the ridiculousness of government. Online schools. How are you going to like be a threat if it's an online school?
This is control. Freaking idiots. This is control. This is exactly why they want to do this. They want control, and now they're going to tell you that you first and foremost, you have to send your child to us. You have to, or they have to be enrolled in a private school or a parochial school. Any of those things, or even in an online school. This is compulsory. You have to do this, or we will strip you and your child. We'll take your child from you through human services.
That's the case in most states. In Georgia, it's somewhat lax, but you still have to. I mean, you probably know because your kids are
we're homeschooled.
You have to send some kind of lettery thing.
Yeah.
Asking permission or kind of stating, hey, I'm doing this.
By the way, this is what we're doing. Let me. With our kids. Don't worry, we got it. Like, for these guys to sit here and say you're gonna be kicked out of public school, cool. I want my tax money that you're putting forward to that.
Good luck.
Well, but I mean, seriously, right? Like,
yeah, but
as a citizen, this is where the outrage really starts to boil over for me. Cool, stop taking my money. And if you try to take my money anymore, then we're going to have real issues.
Shane, so the problem there, while I understand the immediate thing, is they're already taking your money under a million unjustified reasons. So one more unjustified reason is not going to like.
It's the straw.
They've won.
It's the final straw, man.
Unfortunately, they've won on the case of for your safety, for your own good.
For now,
because you're a debt on society or constraint.
Yeah. So it's not that they've won on the continuum.
Well, right now, in practical terms, they have won. The vast majority of people, under compulsion, because almost nobody would give taxes voluntarily, pay taxes.
So So on a continuum right now, because I think this type of thing is going to be the straw that breaks people's backs. Like I'm telling you,
obviously, if they got so many people to sign a signature,
93,000. This like
7% of the population is pretty cool.
To get out there and put out statements like this through legislation that this has to be compulsory to where people are going to get kicked out of online schools.
Well, we can always depend on the government to make a fool of themselves.
It's
Unfortunately,
so
I don't think the lack of logic wakes up that many people. I don't know why. It drives me insane. Maybe because I'm kind of OCD. But all I want to do is go to a committee meeting and be like, why the online schools? And force them to answer. And they like go around the subject, like answer different things. No, like why the online schools? If this is really about safety, why the online schools? Because somebody without a vaccine can't transmit a virus online. Computer virus. Did you get confused? Did you think?
And that's the thing is they'll make a joke. They'll make a really flat joke about it.
Yeah.
And then that'll be it.
I wish somebody could hammer them on something like that.
Well, the people and that this whole damn system isn't going to change until the people get to that point. We're on that continuum because right now, like you said, the state's kind of won right now, but it's a continuum. So things like this, that straw that breaks the camel's back, man, when it comes rushing back the other way and people are like, no, you're done taking our damn money and you're not injecting our kids and you're not doing any of this kind of stuff. And by the way, now we're going to forcibly push back. Like, where is that in America?
Well,
we're not there yet.
It's not going to happen
yet.
In the same way it's happened in the past. It's happening right now. This is part of it.
This is peaceful.
93,000 people signing a signature. I think most of it is going to be peaceful.
I hope so, man.
I don't think it's going to be uncomplicated and unmessy, but I think it's going to be mostly peaceful, meaning no wars. I think people might still die. There might still be like...
No, they're already dying. They're already being killed by the government.
Yes, but I think it's going to be more in that way than a civil war type thing.
Yeah, well, I mean...
I think the fact that technology has allowed a certain level of comfort in our lives, which is a good thing. I think it's great that people have leisure and more food than they need and all that kind of stuff. I think that will make it to where people don't want to give that up as much.
Well, and I love the fact that, through technology, 93,000 people can communicate in a very short span of time and raise the prerequisite signatures that they need that in past times was probably damn near impossible. That's a neat thing.
It is. It's it's one of the things I thought was very unfair that Dave Smith didn't push back against
Nicholas Sarwark.
Sarwark. I was going to say CIA plant.
Yeah.
Sarwark, when Sarwark was like, Ron Paul ran for president as a libertarian in 1988 and only got, I think, like 600,000 votes. And later, Nick on a subsequent show was like, the internet, dude, like, it's not comparable. And I wish he had fired back during the debate. Because it's not comparable.
You can't compare 1988 in terms of communication to 2019.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah. I totally agree with you. Anyway, my hat's off to you maniacs up there. I mean, I hope you get Eric Brakey as your next congressman. But
and this is just something, if it's phrased in the right way, that everybody can agree on. It's like, hey, whether you're pro, anti, in the middle somewhere, you want to inject other things to your body, can we all agree it's like our own business?
Yeah,
that's all we're saying.
You are responsible for your kids. And if you don't want needles and vaccines and stuff going in their body, I think that is a parent's right. And I'll tell you, man, like I didn't get shots for chicken pox or any of that kind of stuff, polio, until I was in the Marine Corps later on growing up. those like
Some
chickenpox.
people probably think your parents are like horrible.
Well, man, I don't think there was even available back then. I don't think there was. No, man. You said like there was
definitely polio back.
No, not polio. Polio was eradicated before my generation started receiving vaccines. Yeah, way before.
Yeah, but they still give out polio vaccine.
Well, not in America. They don't.
They don't?
No, man. You have you ever seen the scars from polio vaccines? Polio vaccines used to be administered like right there in the shoulder, and a lot of times what you would see is a little kind of a circle square indent where the necrotic injection site was scabbed over and nasty and it scars, and like you don't have those. I don't have those. I got one later on when I was in the Marine Corps and I was deployed to a country that hadn't eradicated polio, but not here in the States. Huh. But anyway, chickenpox, man, they used to have chickenpox play parties. So that if a kid in the neighborhood got chickenpox, everybody went and played with that kid. So everybody else got chickenpox and it was over and done with.
Really?
Yeah. Man. Chickenpox isn't.
I got chickenpox now. I think I was like 13 or 14.
Yeah. That's the thing.
I've got a scar from it somewhere.
Oh, I think I've got one on my chin and my eye, and a couple scabs, a couple tiny little scars from chickenpox. Did it itch? Did it suck? Yeah, it kind of sucked. But it was one of those things that, whatever. That's the point. Is do I think there are some good vaccines out there? I do. I think, the vaccines against smallpox and polio and things like that are probably not a terrible thing in places where you need them. Here's the other thing is people who are vaccinated, who have taken the vaccinations, what the hell are you scared about? If you really think that vaccinations work and you're getting vaccinations, then what is your opposition to the people that don't get them?
So the opposition, from what I've heard, I forget the term is like herd immunity kind of thing. So if you start letting it just like go, it's gonna like multiply. So that's
it's gonna beat the vaccines.
Yeah.
Then what's the point of getting vaccinated?
They have a little point. My only point is it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter your opinion on the vaccines. I just want to talk about your individual right to control. Like what doesn't matter what your religion is, what your political party is,
what your conscience.
You get to control your meat sack here. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you are in control of other people's meat sacks, little kids that you have created their meat sacks with your meat sack, and you kind of have them in escrow, you get also like I say over them.
Yeah,
and that's all.
It's one of the greatest things about having kids is now, hopefully in the future, those guys are going to be better versions of you, right? And so if you teach them and have those people understand the principles that we understand, I don't care one way or another if you get vaccines. Don't tell me what to do with my kids. Don't even think. Oh, and that was where I went with the questioning of this one person. It was like, you've got to do it or else, state needs to come in and use force. I was like, wait. You're probably the same guy that uses, like Molon Labe. Come and get it, bastards, with the whole red, well, probably not with Trump and being red flag. He's probably like, oh, yeah, tread harder, daddy. But at the same time, these are the same people that are like, you can't send cops to houses because they'll die. You can't send cops to houses to take guns, and you can't send cops to houses to take kids for vaccination.
Pretty sure kids is going to be even worse.
Oh, are you kidding me? Send somebody to my door and tell them that you're going to rip away my kids from my life?
Have I told you? I think I've told you the story on the podcast before. Have I? It's up in Connecticut, and this family, like he's a consultant, she's a lawyer, or maybe it's the contrary, and they let their kids walk to the park. Have I told you the story?
Oh yeah, and they were unsupervised or something like that.
Like they walked a mile to the park. The kids are maybe like 7 or 8 or something, and the cop sees them walking alone, and so he takes them and he puts them in this like middle ground place where they find like foster homes. It's like it's a bureaucratic process, and the parents can't find their kids for like 12 hours or something. And a lawyer from here in Georgia who has a group called the National Parents Association or something represented them and got them off, which it all sounds crazy. And I'm already like, these parents are acting pretty normal in my personal opinion. Mm-hmm. Like they're just like freaked out trying to find their kids.
Yeah.
But there's no incident of like
12 hours and we haven't even contacted the parents?
Them beating up a cop or them like going crazy or whatever. They're just like, they get their cops. They get their kids back. They're charged with like endangering children. They go through a legal process. And they never get completely
exonerated.
Exonerated. They get like, they plea it down or something weird. Already my head, and maybe that's because I have the dad I have, is like, yeah, my dad would be in jail because he would like not plea whatsoever, and he would be, I don't know, going and I'm saying just me, like I don't care if it's me taking care of my nieces and nephews, I would just like, I would be going insane, and then it happens again. Meaning
same kids?
The police officers already know about the situation. The parents have already gone through this where their kids were kidnapped and they were charged and they pleaded down and so forth. And then the kids are let, and again, I don't think this is the fault of the parents whatsoever. The parents are allowed to tell their kids to be free, and I don't care if they'd gone through it again and they should know better. No, they're trying to live a free life. So they let their kids walk to the park or whatever it is again. Law enforcement picks up the kids again.
Same cop? Do you know?
Not that I know of. This happens again. It's the same police like area though.
Yeah.
You would think people would know. Happens again. This time it's longer.
Was the first place they checked the cops again?
I think so. It was like they went to a different place, and so that's why it took longer and so forth. The kids are crying in the car, like they're
of course they are.
They're informed enough that they're like, no, our parents like need us and we're allowed to be alone, and they're crying and they like, they say they need to go to the bathroom and all this kind of stuff.
It's kidnapping. It's kidnapping by the state.
Still don't go crazy. Now, maybe these parents are smarter and they're like, hey, we're going to take it on ourselves because we don't want to have more problems and we want our kids back, and they're making practical decisions. They're obviously, I mean, they live in Connecticut. It's a nice neighborhood, a nice area. Both parents make a lot of money. I don't know, but I can't help but think that I would be going insane to the point of...
I probably wouldn't be alive. I'll tell you right now, man.
And maybe that's not the smarter thing, and I'm a pretty like reasonable guy, like, hey, exhaust all avenues. But in that circumstance, I don't know how they didn't go more crazy.
If I got people kidnapping my kids, and let's not sugarcoat this, the responsible thing in the role of the police officer here is, all right, if I hate to even go this, like, I'm not going to excuse a cop picking up kids who are walking on a public street ever. That's never okay. You are making contact with kids first and foremost who are not, damaging, vandalizing property, hurting somebody's pets,
or in danger for that matter.
Yeah.
And apparently the two kids are quite eloquent. They're like, we're walking to the park. Our parents let us walk to the park.
Yeah. At that point, interaction over. Hey, good. Now, if you want to be a police officer that helps out, maybe follow them to the park. Hey, can I, would you like a ride to the park? And I hope the kids at that point say, hey, no thanks, but, appreciate it. The fact that this guy makes contact and then puts him in a squad car, and instead of driving them to their house to at least check with the parents, hey, this is what's going on. Are you aware where your kids are and all this kind of stuff? If you got a bad feeling that these kids are up to no good, and you're gonna put them in your squad car, your first stop needs to be the parents, not the station. And then he gets to the station and they sit there for 12 hours the first time.
Well, the whole ordeal was 12 hours.
And that's the thing is, was your first call then to the parents to let them know that, hey, your kids are safe and we have them here. By the way, we need to check. Like,
I think the worst part is, even if one lower individual, we're talking about the cops, makes bad decisions, so forth, then what you had is a presumably thought out process, like thoughtful and considering all the factors, prosecutor, DA piece of garbage who's like, yeah, we're going to charge these parents with endangering their children. Like this isn't spur of the moment. Oh, these kids on the road, I'm scared and I don't know how to think properly. I'm going to make a bad decision. This is, I've apparently got a higher job. A DA is elected most of the time, and a prosecutor is like chosen and has gone to law school. Oh, that's not that valuable, but whatever. I'm bitter. And sits down to make a decision to prosecute. It's not like it's automatic. It's like he literally has discretion. He's like, yeah, so we kidnapped these kids. It looks like we did everything, all the bad things, and the parents were stressed out of their mind of where the kids were for 12 hours. Yeah, let's make them the bad guy.
So
like, that is insane.
I always come back to this idea as well, as if a normal everyday person took the same actions, what would have happened to them? In a world where criminals aren't protected, where we actually have a real criminal justice system that goes after people who murder and rape and kidnap and assault and
they'd be in jail for kidnapping.
They would. Not only kidnapping, but coercion and trying to basically blackmail people into giving them money or favor or something for.
Oh, she did actually all the things that
for the return of their kids.
I was just saying the
action of taking kids,
but now he's in our protection, and now we'll give it back to you, but we're gonna charge you with something. Yeah.
Now you have a crime syndicate. You have a crime syndicate that's taking kids and basically blackmailing parents for money and power and everything else and submission more than anything to keep their kids.
So it's so weird because can you imagine there's certain like we have a somewhat homogenous culture, and people are going to laugh at me there. There's lots of different little cultures around I'm talking about the country.
Yeah.
But there is a basic homogenous culture that vast majority of people understand. But you can fall through the cracks and maybe miss some things. So I just imagine families living like my family lived 25 years ago, living the same way today. They're at a high risk of a lot of problems. Because I was allowed... at the age of 7 or 8, I was 2-3 miles away from my house.
Oh,
walking through other people's neighbor.
Is that all? 2
yards.
or 3 miles?
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you right now, I had a bike, man, and the amount of ground I could cover on a bike in such a short time, I would ride to the ballpark. It was 4 or 5 miles minimum. There were times when I had train tracks near us, and we would take the train tracks to other neighborhoods that didn't have roads that were straight shots, because the train track was a straight shot to a lot of back entries into neighborhoods where friends lived. Probably not the safest route. I mean, really, there was a freight train route. There wasn't any like speed track, any speed trains on there that kill a lot of people. You can hear freight trains from a long, long, long way away. But I digress. It's nobody else's damn business as long as those kids aren't doing anything. And if a regular citizen can't do that thing, the government can't do that thing either. The fact that has escaped the American populace through government indoctrination and programming through propaganda machines and arms and things that are out there, man.
It's escaped completely. It's escaped when you've got these people who just think that whenever a police officer says anything, you just have to do it, as if there's different people. And even to go back to the Geiger case, there's the commentary about not obeying commands.
Unlawful commands.
It's just the not obeying lawful commands. It's just the language has apparently just been perverted, because it's like lawful commands.
I hate coming back.
You don't get to command people in their own house. It's not the right word. I tried to tell him to do stuff, and he wouldn't do it.
Oh my God! So I shot him.
It's like you don't get to tell people what to do.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're in I would venture to think the vast majority of things that cops tell people out in public. Okay?
Oh, just go watch some YouTube videos.
I once had I was walking to Jim and Nick's, the barbecue place around here. Mm-hmm. It's a chain.
It's also my father-in-law, and my brother-in-law's name. Do you know that?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead. Sorry,
but that's funny. And they make these cool cheesy corn rolls.
Yeah, they're good.
But I was walking there. This was years ago, and I had longer hair. And I was with my dad, and this police officer, who didn't seem like a bad guy, was like, "You should cut your hair, Sonny," or "Cut your hair, Sonny," or something like that. And for whatever reason, I didn't say anything. I was just like, eh. And my dad, because he's awesome that way, just very calmly turned around and said, "Don't tell my son what to do." And so just like the smallest things.
Yeah.
You got to nip them in the bud.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, who stands out on a street in a public area and hands out advice? Crazy people. Crazy people. Who stands out on corners and interrupts peaceful people? Crazy people.
Okay, there are some good people, but oftentimes crazy people.
People who have lost their mind or think too much of themselves.
I think it's a too much of themselves more thing.
I hate that we're still talking about cops, but here's the problem: it's
my fault.
Government boiled down is not pulled off by the legislatures or the heads of executives. It is done by the minions on the street in costumes with tin badges. That's where we're at in this country. Hitler killed one person. And we've got this out-of-control, megalomaniac, crazy people who are running around in costumes saying, I have the right to not only identify you, to take your stuff, to take your kids, to compulse you to do things, to arrest you, to kidnap you, to take your lives, and then the justice system backs them up.
Or just to order you around, and if you don't comply with my orders, which can be as stupid as, and he wasn't going to do anything to me if I don't cut my hair.
I don't care.
But it's still funny. But I can just justify you being a criminal just from you not following my orders. Like, stand there, or sit down, or put your hands behind your back.
God. Keep your guns, people. Keep your damn guns.
But you should explain the comment about Hitler killing one person.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe self-evident to me. Hitler killed one person, purportedly, okay? 6 million Jews died at the hands of not Hitler. Hitler gave an order, which should have not been followed. It was, I mean, when we talk about the Nuremberg trials, you're not innocent. You cannot use the excuse, I was following orders. I was just doing my job.
Well, some people were allowed.
The law.
Some people were allowed. There was an argument that people with more responsibility had more culpability.
Sure you do. But still, at the end of the day, if you're taking a person against their will, separating them from their property, their family, throwing them into a rail car, headed to a detention camp without any type of...
You're being too fair.
You're
being way too fair.
That's why I've stopped myself.
And leading them to their death, then you are guilty. I agree.
I'll tell you where the criminals are. The criminals are most of the time found in public-owned buildings. Public, government-type buildings. Those are the criminals.
So while I agree, here's the one problem with that.
Yeah.
That I am guilty of often is...
I said most.
No, that's not even the problem. Yeah, I think you did it right. Is we're separating ourselves from... In France, that would be 65% of the population.
Yeah.
65% of the population works for the government. I think in America, it's some...
It's growing.
I want to guess. I think it's like 30 or something, 35.
Is it really?
In Cobb County, in most counties in America, the biggest employer is the state.
Keep talking.
The school system, et cetera, et cetera. In most countries, I would assume it's between 40 and 60%. So separating ourselves from such a big part of society, when the vast majority of those people don't think they're doing anything wrong, they actually think they're doing things right, I think is a dangerous thing to do, because we're all sinners and we all commit crimes. I commit real crimes sometimes, not a lot. I hope I don't commit a lot of those.
Not real crime.
No, I'm sure I've committed a real crime.
It's all fantasy crime.
I've lied and stolen before in my life.
Well, it's broken down by states.
On a daily basis, I do not commit real crimes. Ooh. Just make that.
This is fun. So
tell us.
No.
You pick a state and have me guess.
Georgia. What percentage of Georgia is the Georgia workforce is employed by the government?
38.
13.9.
That's it?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Is that just for the state and doesn't count counties or something?
So
that seems real low.
Yeah. So no, that's by the by the state, workforce who work in government. So, if you're in the workforce and you work for government, 13.9. I think that's still too high. I think.
Yeah.
Would you take a guess at who is the highest in terms of workforce participation who works for the government?
Is DC in that list?
DC is in it. So
I'm going to say
really good choice.
3 guesses. DC.
Oh, this is fun.
Maryland and California.
Okay, California 13.4%. Actually less than Georgia. That's crazy to me. That's nuts.
Well, it's so big, I guess. Maybe that's
a lot of people. Maybe more people. Yeah, maybe.
And not all of California is so so statist too.
Yeah.
We kind of forget.
Maryland's way up there. Maryland is at 21.4%, topping the charts. 25%.
New York,
DC.
Okay.
No, New York is only at 15.2, and Alaska, which makes sense. Very small population. A lot of them work for government up there in natural resources, forestry, you name it. Like a lot of them are also in the military.
How is the wilderness going to survive without some government workers, man? It feels like that's what they're telling us. Like this wilderness that has existed here for however long.
Pennsylvania is
just not going to exist anymore.
Fairly low, 10.2 for Pennsylvania. That's one of the lower ones.
What are the lowest? I'm going to say Montana, Idaho.
Montana is actually up there, man. 16.1%.
You know why? It's because all those places out west have all this public land BS.
It is. You're exactly right. 14.9% for Idaho. So anything really west of the Mississippi, you're not looking at terribly low numbers.
Yeah.
Now, east of the Mississippi, you have places like Florida, 11.3%.
I'm surprised.
Florida is a extremely populated state, much like California, so maybe that it's a bit of a weird statistic. Tennessee is less than Georgia at 12.8. Kentucky actually has 13.9. Virginia, I mean, that's 19.9% in Virginia.
It's so close to DC.
Yeah. West Virginia is 18.4.
And that's not counting all the CIA employees that they don't put on those rolls.
Yeah. And Hawaii obviously being way up there as well, 20.3%. You kind of look at these like, all right, a lot of their population may have, bases in them as well in terms of military bases and things like that. But at any rate, yeah, I digress. When you get down to it, the fact that we have this much this many people working for government, carrying out the will of these awful, awful people, these just generally known as murderers and liars and cheats, right? Like that's who these people are. This is who you're working for if you throw on a uniform every day and go to work for the state. You're working for people who are known murderers and cheats and liars. So if you're carrying out their will and it violates the non-aggression principle where people aren't hurting anybody and they're peaceful people and it's fantasy crime, we got a big adjustment to make in a short time if this is going to stay as peaceful as I hope it does.
Well, so that actually reminds me of something in the news the other day. One of the people from Radiohead, the band, made an interesting comment. He said he was a hypocrite. I was like, okay, I'm listening because I see hypocrisy everywhere and it gets on my damn nerves.
Yeah.
And he says, I've been like championing this climate change stuff for over a decade, right? He's a big environmentalist and all this kind of stuff. And yet I fly all over the world giving concerts in private jets and big SUVs and so forth. And I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah.
He didn't say he was going to remedy that, but I at least appreciate him acknowledging it, I guess. And the problem is, I think a lot of people, maybe our culture, worldwide culture or something, doesn't see that as a big enough problem. Like there are people, and I think there's a lot of empathy to be had too, right? Like we live in a world and people need to feed their families, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But I think there are a lot of people who are too okay with just making the compromise. And then there's probably some other people who probably deserve even more empathy who are trying to fix a system which is deeply flawed. I had a friend who stopped being a teacher after 14 years. it was 14 years of struggles and like hiding from the system because they wanted her to put every kid's name. Like she taught is it ESP? No, like kids with mental deficiencies and so forth.
Yeah,
and ages I think like 10ish. And they wanted her to put on lists, like eternal lists of like bad behavior and all this kind of stuff, and she just wouldn't do it because she's like, these kids
they're gonna have lives.
These kids have problems already. Like, don't make it more complicated on them. And so for 14 years, as much as I think she would have potentially done more good, especially to herself, going into private education or something like that, I think she really did try to make the world a better place by fighting the system. And I think there's a lot of people like that. We have one of our listeners, Ron, who's a cop. Is it in Illinois?
Or Ohio or something, up there in the Midwest.
Who also loves Volkswagens.
Huh.
Who's trying to fix the system from within and has told us that he's had some success influencing the system. So
I'll tell you what, good luck to the good cops out there, man. You guys got a hell of a battle in front of you, and man, I wish you all the luck and protection in the world, because you're gonna need it, man. It is crooked and messed up. I don't know, man. I don't trust the government. I don't trust them with vaccines. I don't trust them to make anything compulsory. I just not a damn chance in this world right now. If you're asking for anything compulsory to be done by the government, you better think again. I mean,
I think it's a great point, because I think we can all get on board.
Yeah.
There's so many things the government does these days. We can all get on board. Like, you don't want the government telling you like what's medicine or not? Cool. I don't want the government going to war and killing other people.
I don't know
with my money. Can we ally here?
I don't want them doing anything like saying I gotta go serve it either. I had somebody approach me the other day about compulsory service, telling me that I think everybody should do 2 years. Everybody in some sort
Do I know
of
that
service.
Person? I have a feeling I know that person.
You probably know a different person, but this, and I said, well, I own me, you own you. Now, if the government can tell me that I've got to go do something, does that mean that I own myself?
What did they say?
Oh, you just saw that little hamster wheel starting to
that's good.
turn a little bit. And you're like, well, and I'm like, I'm going to tell you right now, we can have this discussion another time. It's too long to have right now, but you don't own you, and this is not America if things are compulsory. Like, you cannot apply compulsory with the government at all, because it violates conscience. Like we were making the point earlier, you own you. You own your conscience, and anybody that tries to make you do something deliberately out of line with your conscience is a tyrant.
Well, I think some people just need the man, I'm feeling very arrogant today.
Let's hear it.
No, there's some people who, in different circumstances, they're different people. Some people who need help now will be the ones helping us later. But I think some people need people who have maybe more confidence, more self-awareness, more leadership skills, or so forth.
This guy was a judge. And God bless him, man. If you're listening, I got no ill will, but I'll tell you right now, you're wrong.
No, but and doesn't see we shouldn't shouldn't necessarily equate judges to being
no
more confident, more
on this show,
more self-aware, or what's the third one I said? Or more
virtuous?
I didn't say that, but yeah, sure. And sometimes somebody just needs somebody else to come because the government feels like a solid foundation, right, to attach itself to, and people lack that sometimes, and you just need to be their solid foundation to attach something to. Yeah. So
I'm disagreeing. Want to move on to our second topic for the day?
What's our timeline?
We got a 110 right now.
I would like to finish on the 45 laws.
Oh, sure, let's do it.
And kind of, because that one I need more time on.
Give me the background on this, because I started kind of reading through this and I was like, this doesn't seem like our guys. This seems like somebody not aligned with our principle.
So it's interesting. I'm giving a talk. We'll talk to a group later on today, the 3%ers that you've talked to already.
Yeah.
And I needed something to talk about. I'm doing it because the person who asked me, I think they're really awesome. They're a patron on the show. Bill, thank you very much. And we're having lunch with him very shortly.
Cool.
And I can't believe that I haven't mentioned this to you guys before, because it is a very, very good tool. It's called The Laws of Public Policy Process. I thought it was in another title. It's 45 rules. I prefer the term rules. Mm-hmm. It is on the Leadership Institute's website. I will include a link in the show notes. It's on just a web page. Pretty simple with the 45 rules. You can download a PDF, and it is available in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 other languages too, which is kind of cool. From French to Latin.
People still speak Latin.
I thought it was
not a dead language.
Thought it was a dead
Apparently
language.
A lot of language comes from Latin, so
it does. But it is. It was made up by Morton Blackwell, and he started the Leadership Institute. He is a conservative activist, is what the Wikipedia says. He's pretty old now. He's 79. And I guess the best way to say it is that he is a big liberty ally. While I don't think we'd agree on everything, and he plays politics more than Shane and I would probably like, he definitely he works with Yale a lot. A lot of the kids who come out of Yale or who cycle in between Yale and the Leadership Institute have gone to a lot of their trainings, have worked for them, and there's a lot of overlap there. I don't think all our ideas kind of align perfectly, but I definitely think that he is a friend of liberty. He was actually at the 2012 convention, which is when it was Romney and Ron Paul and Newt Gingrich, I guess, and Santorum. Those guys. He was the one who was on a bus that just kept on circling for like an hour that they wouldn't let off. So he's maybe not like the tip of the spear, but he's sympathetic to the rebellion as they tried to kick him out because he didn't ostensibly want the Romney thing and was trying to get the other options there. So, not a perfect guy, but a good place to look. Definitely shouldn't say too much bad about him.
So, and what is this that is the 45?
So it's 45 rules of public policy process. And there's a lot of them.
We'll get through some of them.
I'm just going to randomly go to not even my favorites because it's a big list. It's a whole page. But the first one is never give a bureaucrat a chance to say no.
Never give a bureaucrat a chance to say no. You got to make him say yes all the time.
So Morton Blackwell plays politics very well. He makes some arguments about this U.S. senator from North Carolina, and how one of the smartest things he did was he decided he was just going to compromise on big tobacco and not push against that, even though he thought subsidies were wrong, so he could get things done. And he was very conservative, except for that, and that's why people liked him. For example, I would think that is not the best thing to do. All these rules don't establish that you have to make a compromise, but a lot of the reason I think they're great is because they're very smart. So never give a bureaucrat a chance to say no is saying phrase what you say, or put the power behind you so that they can't say no. Because when they can't say no, that's when they can't say no, that's like a brick wall, right? Like if they have bureaucratic power to say no and say, yeah, no driver's license for you, and they're the DMV, you might have a few other avenues, but that's a big brick wall that you can't vote them out. They've got this weird power on you.
Oh yeah, so they're unelected
phrasing
government.
Things or making sure that when you ask, you're like, here, I have 93,000 petitions, and not allowing them to say no, or knowing the rules better than them and knowing all the possibilities. Like just don't go blind and be like, hey, Mr. Bureaucrat, can I have I don't know what we're asking for, a permit to have a speech in the park.
Yeah, you will do this, or we will make sure that you're infamous.
Know all the rules, or have all the power necessary before you decide you're going to ask a bureaucrat to do something, or the emotional manipulation necessary, whatever you need to do to get the job done within principles. Let's see. Keep your eye on the main chance and don't stop to kick every barking dog. Now, all these are for individuals to assess on their own, like per their own conscience, right? But it is a very smart thing in politics. If the main prize is to get Matt Gertler elected in North Georgia, right? And Matt and I knocked on like 8,000 doors. We didn't knock on the door over there because it wasn't on our list. The guy might have been in his yard. Actually, when people were in their yard, we'd stop by anyways, because then people were like, why didn't you come talk to me? But there were probably a million examples of things we didn't do. We're like, no. because it wasn't worth our time and it would take away from the main prize. This is something in politics, especially campaigns. It's very understandable. Okay, people are emotional, and they usually don't have an operating manual for these type of things. They just live their life the way they normally live it. Well, and sometimes they see a cat on the side of the road, like, I gotta save the cat. Actually, I think that's a priority. But in politics specifically, the problem is you're fighting a system that is kind of made to bog you down.
Well, yeah, and I would say campaigning or at the operational level of government, either way, right? There are some things that take precedence in hierarchy, right? For us, we boiled those down to principles, 3 of them: peace, liberty, free markets, right? Mm-hmm. I really don't care about the whole climate change thing, not because your environment isn't important, but listen, we're slaughtering people. Right, we're slaughtering people around the world right now, innocent people, and that needs to stop. Yesterday, like that needs to stop. Like that's got to, like that's what we're talking about. Like not kicking dogs. Mm-hmm. So I don't give a damn if 12 years from now we're all gonna die in this make believe apocalypse that you guys are talking about with climate change. I got people who are being murdered over here right now with our tax dollars and our military, or somehow through a proxy war. Yeah. Like, let's solve that one first.
It's probably, so this is good life advice sometimes. It's probably slightly harder for Shane and I, because instead of our goal being winning Congress, it's become slightly broader. And the broader you make your goals,
culture,
the more effort it takes to accomplish multiple things, or the harder it is to see like which one is the right path. But when you have very set goals, it is an easy thing to do. So having a few very set goals, like Shane and I, it could be getting 100 patrons or getting 4,000 listeners an episode, whatever it is. If you set a particular goal, it's easier to see, okay, that doesn't advance towards this. Mm-hmm. Going to, and if things are opposed, like going to a YAL convention or going to an environmental convention, like YAL's probably going to be the better bet for us, because we can expose ourselves to more people, et cetera, and we don't think that the environment thing is maybe the priority right now. So that's what it is. And in politics, this might seem very simple, but in politics, this is insanely valuable, especially during campaigning, because there's just so much going on, and you can get frustrated by like a candidate just goes crazy because somebody is on Facebook calling them a douche. It's like, it doesn't matter, dude. Don't worry about him.
Yeah,
it is not worth your time, because the goal is to the goal is to win. Let's see. Don't treat good guys like you treat bad guys. You want to guess what that means?
Well, I mean, I imagine it's, I see it a lot in terms of, the Libertarian Party. Like, the Libertarian Party it's a hot mess sometimes, and I hate to say it, but it's like, it's one of those things where, you've got little factions, whether they're minarchists, anarchists, whether they're, whatever, the extreme or the radical party or the caucuses. Like, you have all this, and like most of the time you guys agree on 99.9% of everything, right? Mm-hmm. And you're probably pretty good dudes. Like, you all agree on NAP. That's the thing, is you guys are good dudes. Let's not treat those guys like these assholes over here who are, like I said, killing kids and, running weird pedophile rings and, doing compulsion to inject your kids and using police to enter your homes unannounced and without warrant. And like, that's what we need to be talking about. Like, let's not treat each other like we're treating like these guys over here. Like,
it's like, I'm probably guilty of this sometimes. I do think that there's a place for everybody, and sometimes we're going to be on this fine line, but I don't want to be too guilty of it. It's, I don't know, you'll see Justin Amash. He voted for the transgender thing being covered mm-hmm. in the military, and then recently he attacked Trump for wanting to negotiate with Afghanistan because it was too around 9/11. I think that's right. One of the stupidest thing that Justin Amash has ever done. I think that other people who did that, the same thing as him, are like consistently stupid. It puts him in a very bad light. But I'm not going to be like, Justin Amash is dead to me.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I have an unspoken, like, I don't know what you call it, unspoken principle that I won't really argue with people so much in the liberty movement. I don't want to. I don't need to. For the most part, if they get the non-aggression thing right, they get property right, they get liberty, they get free markets, peace. Like if they get those things right, I don't need to argue with you about much of anything.
Well, arguing, you can always argue nicely. So me, it's more about just like the character assassination, cutting them off, not helping them, not being their ally on things, that kind of stuff.
With my small amount of time in this life, I'm going after the much bigger things. I'm going after those things where people are violating liberty, people are violating NAP, they're violating property. That's what I'm going after. I don't have time, nor do I think it's an effective use of my time to go and argue with people and quibble about all of these things that we would love to get to over here. But guys, we're way over there. We are so far over there right now that you guys are the same people to those people. You guys are all the same. And you need to kind of like look at each other that way and say, hey, listen, these guys over here, until we get this principled thing over here where we can all agree and make a case in natural truth that cannot be defeated, until we bring that back into mainstream, this is a waste of time.
Yeah, and everybody has their spot. It actually takes a lot of empathy to understand all the different, like I'm sure Morton Blackwell thinks that some people who I think are my complete enemy are his partial ally. And then we have these partial allies. I'm in the Republican Party, and there's some people who I agree with a lot of things, but who would be like, yeah, no, the war in Iraq was, well, that one kind of everybody agrees these days. But
over policing of the poor?
We don't talk about that much. They'd say that the AUMF allows Trump to do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
And then they'd be like, no, I'm not going to make them 100% enemy. I'm going to make them, you're my ally, but by the way, you're wrong on that.
Yeah.
And actually, when you're able to do that over time, because I don't think they have as many principles, again, being super arrogant today, they'll just appreciate that you're being kind to them. They might not acknowledge it, but they know it somewhere. Like they know it that after like me 10 minutes arguing with constitutional like quotes on a stage in front of everybody saying this is like categorically wrong, they're pretty sure that if they have the same opinion, I think they're categorically wrong. The fact that I don't like punch it into their face too much, that I just do it once and like nicely, I think they know deep down that I'm like being kind, which I think I should be kind. I don't think I'm being like extra like over the top nice. You're pointing your pencil at me.
Do you know the difference between you and the Federal Reserve?
My name is Banks.
I love you.
Bank.
I love you, but you guys are both arrogant banks.
That's funny.
That
is a good rebellion joke.
That is a T-shirt or a meme in the making, man.
I don't think I'm important enough for a T-shirt.
I think I'm going to put a little. Cool. I think I'm going to put a little icon of the. I'm going to write this down. A little icon of the Fed, and then banks, and have arrogant banks.
That's very funny. I'm going to try to get for a few more of these with a little bit less. What's the word when you just go on and on?
I don't know. Verbosity.
There's another word. Rambling. An ounce of, this is 21, an ounce of loyalty is worth a pound of cleverness.
Say that. An ounce of clarity?
An ounce of loyalty is worth a pound of cleverness.
Boy.
Oh, I totally agree.
Slippery.
In politics, I'd prefer somebody, in general, I'd prefer loyal people.
Loyal to what?
Loyal to you and the cause. And
wait. All right, so you lose me. My thought process.
So I'm talking outside of politics too. Like in general, I'd prefer people who are loyal
to
over
people,
clever.
Loyal to people or loyal to principle.
So if we're talking about politics, it's principle, but there's nothing wrong with personal loyalty too. Like I'd like somebody who is principled, meaning their loyalty to me is not going to make them like do unprincipled things. But there's nothing wrong with people being loyal. Like I want to be loyal to everybody, but I am more loyal to you than to a stranger. It doesn't mean I'm going to violate their rights.
All right, so I think this is worth unpacking a little bit and explaining a little bit, because I think this can be misconstrued for one thing, right? Because
everything good can be used for bad purposes.
Yeah,
okay. Okay. There were people who are loyal to to Nazis, but and we'll unpack it just to be like the point of this within the public policy process rules. Our TV just turned off for some reason. Is that if you're running a political operation, you can have some clever people, but those clever people, if they stab you in the back, it will be good for your.
Well, they're not principled.
It will be good for your. Yeah, principle and loyalty have to go together. But it will be good to you to choose over cleverness, intelligence, and so forth, loyalty over cleverness for the long term.
I think,
and often what people do is they hire the best and most intelligent,
clever,
freaking consultant ever, who often might not be as principled / loyal / both of them. And he's just saying you should err on the side of loyalty because that's actually more important. And I think people who are truly loyal would tend to be more principled.
Oh, I don't think so, man. I think in this day and age.
But again, good things can be used for bad. That's just a fact too. That doesn't make the good things less valuable.
I'm going to further define this.
You can take religion, which can be a very good thing, and you can use it for extreme evil as it has been used.
I'm going to further define what I find to be problematic statement.
Okay.
I think that an ounce of loyalty to principle is far greater than a pound of cleverness for anything.
I agree.
And I'll leave it at that. Because I think somebody who's loyal to principle will also be that person that tells you when you mess up.
I don't think I think somebody who is truly loyal would be doing themselves a disservice and being unloyal if they knowingly didn't tell somebody when they messed up.
Yeah.
It all kind of goes together. But I agree with your statement. I don't think it's and it's funny. Somebody was talking on a podcast, can't remember which one, but the fact that there's people who make the assertion that like we need, for a virtuous society, we need people with a higher IQ. Like the higher the IQ, the better society is going to be, and the more homogenous the society, the better it's going to be. And I really don't think so. I think that principles, the basic principles, are super duper simple. And I would prefer somebody who is genuinely a good person, who might be less intelligent, than somebody who's intelligent and who's not a good person, like by far. And I don't think that is going away from reality. I think that there's all sorts of intelligences and all sorts of people out there, and I don't think that intelligence equals good. I think Hitler was probably pretty smart, and I think he was a horrible person, in case you didn't know.
Yeah, pretty bad.
So I'll do two more, just let's see.
One more?
One more?
Yeah, you're at an hour 30 already.
I'm doing two more. Half my podcast. In politics, nothing moves unless it's pushed. Very quick one. That just means that people who play the game of just being around there and being like activists and cheering on, like they're not actually getting stuff done. People getting stuff done are people who are putting pressure somewhere.
Yeah.
Because to push something, you have to put pressure.
Agreed.
And what will I use for my last one?
Make it a good one. Don't make it one of those that you don't want to let go of.
This is a good one.
All right.
I've told you this one before. It's number 44. Moral outrage is the most powerful motivating force in politics.
Yeah, I think we've lost. I think there was a book back in the day called The Death of Outrage, right? Like,
so it should, to make it more precise, you should say justified moral outrage.
Principled. Yeah, principled moral outrage.
We should.
I just like that
under the premise of principles.
Which I don't see there, but yeah, no,
But it's true, and there's like a gradient. It's if you're just outraged about everything, like you talk about everybody like being at 10
all the time
in the media, it doesn't mean that much. But if you have a true moral outrage against something that you should be morally outraged about,
yeah,
that is a powerful force, and that's kind of why we finally got Ralston here in Georgia somewhat on the hook. To some degree, he's been kind of exposed because the moral outrage was kind of good enough. But the problem is, all moral outrage is kind of washed away because everybody's outraged about everything. Things that shouldn't be outrageous whatsoever.
Yeah,
just people who don't want to put things into their body because they said so.
And then they're outraged about things that are non-principled.
That too.
Or they ignore things that they should be outraged about. Principles. MAGA crowd.
So you're saying that silence in the face of evil is evil itself. Not to act is to act, that God is watching.
Amazing. Well, I love when we put a nice bow on things at the very end like that.
What if I have one more? I'm just kidding. Thank you guys for bearing with us. I hope you have enjoyed it. I'm sorry we did not get to Michigan, but maybe we'll cover it some other time.
I think it's applicable. It's not up for vote yet or anything. So I think we'll continue to tease this one, and cool. It's
got to do with guns, guys.
Yeah, it's got
you guys love guns.
It's got a lot of traction out there, so we are definitely going to cover it at some point. But if you guys have anything to bring to our attention, want us to cover it here on The Rebellion, send it to info@rebellionpod.com. If you want to, please go out there, leave us a 5-star review, especially on Apple. Helps drive us to the top of the algorithms.
We have 97 reviews right now on Apple. 3 more would give us 100, and that would be cool.
Century mark. Yeah, it's a goal. It's definitely a big milestone for us.
Let's do it by the end of October, guys.
Yeah. By Halloween.
I'm stressing myself just saying that.
If you have found value in the show, you want to help us spread this message, go out there and do amazing things, finish our website, and advertise, go to
patreon.com/rebellionpod.
Oh, man, listen to us. Harmony. You want to sing something next?
Yeah. Ready? This has
been The Rebellion. You messed it up.
Just finish it. I messed it up.
This is The Rebellion, your place for peace, liberty, and free markets.
We love you. We need you.
Peace.
Don't hurt people and don't take their stuff.